Welcome back to Studio 5. So just like you might do when you plop down in a doctor's waiting room, for example, today we're opening the page on a compelling headline and getting some deeper perspective. This particular headline is from Parents Magazine, and it reads, "Are Kids a Reason to Stay Married?" It opens up with the story of Jess, a woman who is agonized in her unhappy marriage. She says she would consider divorce, but the last thing she wants for her own two girls is to, quote, go through what she did when her own parents divorced. What's worse, she rationalizes, exposing them to arguing and unhappiness or splitting up the family. There has been some infidelity in this case. Her bottom line question is, should I stay in this marriage for the sake of my kids? We called on Studio 5 relationship contributor Matt Townsend for some answers. Let's hit the bottom line here. Should you stay in a relationship like that that's plagued with unhappiness, fighting, quarreling for the sake of your kids and this happy family?
Huge question.
Yeah.
Always depends on circumstances.
Right.
Statistically, yes.
You should.
Your children will always be better off with their mother and their father in their home.
Do you see a lot of couples make that sacrifice then for the kids' sake?
Well, and I would actually just say then you don't have to just sit there and it's not like a death sentence. You can also go learn and improve and try to change the conditions. But statistically, moms and dads are better protectors for their kids than even the next step parents potentially. There's a lot more potential abuse. There's a lot of other issues that come up the minute you start dividing a family up.
Is the infidelity in this particular situation, again, it's a case-by-case thing. We can't, give a blanket answer for everybody, but is the infidelity in this case a tipping point?
No, not necessarily. I mean, interestingly, people that have been unfaithful actually can go create really strong, healthy relationships again.
And what's the age recommendation? Is there one? If you're going to stick in it for the sake of your kids, what's an age where they can, mentally, emotionally cope with their parents splitting up?
You know what? Again, I've seen people that were 30 that can't handle their parents coping or handle it. So I don't know that it's by age. I think it's kind of by how real you are and how hard you try to work on it. The real key is there contention in the home? Contention is one of the biggest predictors of why you should go and divorce. Tons of contention, fighting in front of the kids. Other than abuse, contention, mental illness, and like incessant infidelity, those are the most basic predictors of when divorce is actually statistically going to prove to be better for you than staying together.
Interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that headline kind of prompted the topic we're going to get in today, kind of a larger question. What should you consider before you bail? And you say many couples are rushing into divorce a little bit too quickly. You wish they would pause, step back, and slow things down.
The research actually shows that 66% of people wish they had done more before they divorced. They wish they were better prepared. They wish that they had actually tried more. So most people actually regret divorcing.
They regret it.
It's interesting because we don't ever hear that side of the story.
No.
But the researchers aren't there to just make sure everyone's happy in the world. They're actually figuring out, does divorce pay? And another thing they're finding out is about a third of the divorces are probably justified because they fall into that criteria because of mental abuse or any abuse or mental illness. If there's been incessant infidelities or consistent prolonged fighting in the home, that is where it's justified. You will probably statistically do better by divorcing. The other 2/3 of divorces are elective. You're going to elect to go choose another partner, and that doesn't necessarily statistically pay off for you. You won't necessarily feel more hope with another partner if we can't feel hope with ourselves, peace with ourselves, strength with ourselves, even when living with a very difficult person. I don't know moving on is going to necessarily change all that.
That number shocks me. 2/3 regret.
2/3 are elective. Yeah, 2/3 regret, and 2/3 of our divorces are probably just electives.
When a couple gets to the point of divorce, obviously to some extent they're at a loss for what to do and what the solution is, or if there even is a solution. When do you suggest then couples actually get help and seek professional
The minute you
advice?
start seeing signs, the minute you start having your mind wander that maybe it's better, we call it shopping alternatives. The minute you're trying to look for a different partner, look for a different life, right then, at least by then, probably about a year earlier, I'd be seeing a professional. Now, our goal isn't just to go get help. Our goal must be to get help that produces results. See, everyone likes to check, well, we did therapy, we talked to our religious leaders, we did this, we did this. Don't go down a list. Go down looking for the actual change. Look for help, look for insight. Insight into you, insight into your relationship. It's not enough to get help. You want to get help that actually produces results. Not even with him, or with you. I mean, not with the other person you're trying to fix, but make sure you're getting change, because you need change in order to move on. Whether you're going to stay or divorce, you need to change.
So technically that could mean going to 1, 2, 3 different therapists until you find someone who can actually help you.
It sounds weird, but you have to shop therapy to find someone that relates to you. Not every therapist relates to you the same. Not every therapist is solution focused. Not every therapist is pro-marriage. Not every therapist will get you or your husband. So be careful too, because when you guys are having tension, I can't tell you how many times I've seen counselors get involved in your tension and start picking sides. And then now I've even seen counselors argue. I've needed to mediate not only for a couple, but for their counselors.
You're kidding.
It's horrible.
What is your take then on, let's say, a step back before you approach the official, trained coach, trained counselor, trained therapist? Should you involve a family member that can provide that advice?
No.
Or no, never?
Well, I would get some insight, but everyone's kind of biased, and some are just biased to protect you, and some are biased anti-marriage, or some are biased, and some just don't like the guy, or some will protect you when you shouldn't be protected anymore. So get some advice, but I'd get advice from a professional.
I can see how it'd be really easy, especially toward the end, to just make this a finger pointing game. You're passing the blame and pointing the finger any chance you can get, but you say a healthy split, if you get to that point, involves each person owning their own part of it.
I always say, the marriage is, 100 week equation. We both have to be giving our best in this equation. So I always say, they always say, I know I'm a little to blame. I mean, I know I'm not perfect.
Right.
But they really have formulated their whole leave and their whole exit strategy on how imperfect he is. So I always ask, so tell me then, what part of the problem are you, specifically?
Interesting.
So if your problem is, and the story they tell is, well, we got married way too early. Well, tell me, what was it about you that thought getting married when you were 17 was smart?
You're constantly turning it back to them.
Why? There's a reason I do it. It's crazy. It seems abusive and mean.
Does it? Does it feel that way?
Well, that's what they sometimes wonder. But the reality is you're the only one you can change. So let's say I'm 20% responsible, you're 80% responsible for the divorce. Then I need to own 100% of my 20. And until I'm crystal clear what I did or what I didn't do, was I strong enough? Was I independent enough? Was I mature enough? Did I know enough about me? Did I have enough character? Till I know that, why on earth would you leave? You're at least right now in a system that's fairly predictable. The minute you leave that system, you're now in a system you know nothing about. And if you haven't fixed you, you're going to take the unfixed you to this system you know nothing about.
Well, and you make a great point. Just because divorce is ending the marriage doesn't mean it's necessarily ending the relationship.
No, it will never end the relationship. Again, I'm a product of divorce. My parents divorced. Love them. They did great. But the reality is this goes with you. This does not just stop because you're divorcing. You will always be dealing with this ex-partner and his family. You'll always be dealing with his DNA, with his anxiety, or with her anxiety or her depression. So what I suggest is before you end up terminating it, and this is how I started my whole career. I was a divorce mediator, and I would make them learn a bunch of rules before we could talk through the divorce. And I noticed when they started learning rules, they communicated better. And when they communicated better, a lot of times they didn't want a divorce. So I thought, let's start teaching people how to relate. Now, they make you take classes before you divorce so you can co-parent. But it's about I think, a 4 or 5 hour class. You're not going to learn enough skills in a 4 or 5 hour class to fix something that took you 20 years to mess up. But learn how to relate, learn how to communicate, learn how to not get angry. You're going to get angry waiting for him to show up to hand the kids off. You're going to get angry because she keeps asking for more money even though the court says this is all you're supposed to pay. The feelings are all going to be there. Relationships don't go away with a divorce. Marriages do. We terminate the marriage, you'll never terminate the relationship. You go ask somebody that was divorced 45 years ago how they feel about it, and they still have an accounting. They still have an accounting deep in their heart about that relationship.
And finally, quickly, you point out that you need to get your house in order. The finances, all of the logistics that come with that decision.
And the house, too, is you. You need to be physically strong and healthy. You need to be looking as good as you can and be as healthy as you can, because you're going to be a stress case. You need to be socially connected and have a bunch of friends that will support you. You need to be emotionally strong enough to be able to deal with the tension you're going to feel with. You need to be spiritually strong, so you're making sure you're making this decision through, either a spiritual means or your highest values, not through being reactive. And you need to be financially strong where you know you can do it even by yourself if you never got another check from the guy.
Really good stuff, Matt. Really good stuff. Thank you so much. You have a worksheet, I know, about this topic you're posting on your Facebook page.
That's right.
We'll send people there for that, and you have an awesome date night adventure coming up.
Yes, and I don't think we have the dates yet.
Still not out there?
It's still out there, but be planning on it. It's for the holidays. It's so you can deal better with your in-laws. I mean, some people have issues with that.
I mean, just a few.
That's right. So then we don't have to divorce.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brett.
Really insightful conversation.